On a freezing winter morning, an officer and his loyal K9 stopped in their tracks. Through the frosted glass of a shop window, 3 helpless puppies hung by harnesses, priced at just $1 each. The sight was cruel, unthinkable. What happened next would break hearts and change lives forever. Snow crunched under heavy boots as Officer Daniels walked his patrol route, his loyal K9, Rex, trotting faithfully by his side. The air bit with icy sharpness, each breath turning into clouds of white mist. Winter had locked the small town in. Silence, broken only by the faint hum of passing cars that Rex's ears twitched with every sound, his nose brushing the ground, always alert. To Daniels, the dog wasn't just a partner. He was family, a constant reminder of why he wore the badge. Together, they had faced danger, but they had also found joy in simple walks like this, where peace seemed possible. That morning, though, something felt off. The streets were too quiet, the shop windows frosted over, hiding what lay inside. As Daniels turned the corner, Rex suddenly stopped, stiffening. His low growl broke the calm. Following his dog's gaze, Daniels looked up, and what he saw through the glass froze his heart. Through the frosted glass of the shop window, Daniels' eyes locked onto a crude sign, written in bold black marker. $1 for all. At first, he thought it was some kind of joke, a clearance sale for forgotten goods. But then his gaze shifted, and his stomach turned. Hanging from thin harnesses inside the display were 3 small German Shepherd puppies. Their little bodies dangled awkwardly, suspended like lifeless ornaments. Their eyes, wide and glassy, blinked slowly as they shifted uncomfortably against the straps. Snowflakes clung to the glass, framing the scene like a cruel painting no one should ever see. Rex let out a sharp bark, his body pressing against the window, as though demanding Daniels to act. The officer's jaw tightened, fury rising in his chest. This wasn't just neglect, it was deliberate cruelty, masked as commerce. In that moment, Daniels knew the morning patrol was over. What he had just found would change everything. Daniels stepped closer to the glass, his breath fogging the window as he peered inside. The puppies looked frail, far too young to be separated from their mother. Their tiny legs kicked weakly against the air, their paws trembling with every shiver. One let out a faint whimper, so soft it was nearly drowned out by the howling wind outside. Rex whined beside him, pawing at the window, as if trying to break through. His ears pinned back, and his amber eyes burned with urgency. Daniels had seen his K9 partner face down armed suspects without hesitation, but never had he seen him so desperate, so heartbroken. The officer's fists clenched as his gaze returned to the crude harnesses cutting into tender skin. The sign mocked him, $1 for all, reducing living, breathing creatures to nothing more than cheap bargains. Rage surged in his chest. These weren't items for sale. They were lives begging silently for rescue. Daniel stood frozen on the sidewalk, snow swirling around him. His training told him to call it in, report the cruelty, wait for backup, and let procedure handle it. But his heart thundered against his chest, screaming that time was already running out. Those puppies couldn't wait for paperwork. That he glanced at Rex, who pressed his nose harder against the glass, letting out another mournful whine. The sound ripped through Daniels, reminding him of the day he first met Rex as a half-starved pup rescued from a back alley. If someone hadn't intervened back then, Rex wouldn't be here now, loyal, strong, alive. The officer's fists tightened around his radio. He could hear his sergeant's voice in his head. Stay professional. Don't let emotion dictate your actions. But this wasn't just emotion. It was justice, raw and unfiltered. Daniels exhaled sharply, his breath clouding in the frozen air. For once, protocol would have to wait. His next step would decide whether 3 tiny lives survived. The night, Daniels pushed the door open with force, the bell above it clanging harshly. The sudden warmth of the shop did nothing to thaw the chill in his chest. Rex entered beside him, hackles raised, a low growl humming in his throat. Behind the counter, a man looked up casually, as though selling life for $1 was no crime at all. What do you think you're doing? Daniels barked, his voice sharp enough to cut through the air. He pointed at the dangling puppies, their small bodies swaying faintly in the harnesses. The shopkeeper shrugged, leaning lazily against the counter. People want them cheap. I give them cheap. What's the problem, officer? Rage flared in Daniel's eyes. The problem is they're not objects. They're living beings. His hand hovered near his radio, his other clenched into a fist. Rex's growl deepened, teeth flashing. The room felt electric, on the verge of explosion. For Daniels, this was no longer a store. It was a crime scene. Without waiting for the man's approval, Daniels moved toward the display. His hands trembled with urgency as he unbuckled the crude straps, digging into tender skin. One by one, the puppies were lifted from their cruel suspension, their tiny bodies collapsing into his arms, shivering but alive. Each whimper pierced deeper than any bullet he had ever faced. Rex stepped forward, tail low, body softening. He sniffed each pup gently, letting them nuzzle into his fur. One licked his muzzle weakly, and the hardened K9 responded with a soft whine, lying down so the puppies could press against his warmth. The transformation was instant. They were no longer hanging helplessly, but clinging to life beside their protector. Daniels wrapped the three in his coat, holding them close to his chest. His eyes burned with anger and relief. Not one more. Second, he muttered under his breath. For the first time since he entered the shop, the puppies stopped crying. They knew. They were safe now. Daniel stepped outside with the puppies bundled in his coat, Rex pacing protectively at his side. Snowflakes clung to their tiny fur as they whimpered softly, but this time it wasn't from pain. It was from exhaustion. With one hand cradling them close, Daniels lifted his radio. His voice was firm, edged with fire. "Dispatch, this is Officer Daniels. I need animal control and backup at my location. Possible charges for cruelty. 3 victims recovered." The line crackled with confirmation. Within minutes, patrol cars pulled up, their flashing lights casting red and blue. Across the snowy street, officers gathered, jaws tightening as they saw what Daniels carried. The shopkeeper was escorted out in cuffs, still muttering excuses, but no one listened. His cruelty had already spoken louder than any defense. Rex sat tall beside the puppies, his amber eyes never leaving them. The other officers whispered, shaken by what they had witnessed. Daniels looked down at the fragile lives pressed against his chest and knew this was only the beginning of their story. At the shelter later that evening, Daniels knelt on the floor, his coat still wrapped around the 3 puppies. Volunteers hurried to prepare warm blankets and bowls of food, but the pups clung to him and Rex, unwilling to let go of the first safety they had ever known. Rex lay quietly beside them, his big body forming a protective wall, his steady heartbeat lulling them into calm. One tiny pup crawled onto Daniel's hand and collapsed there, sighing as if it finally understood peace. The officer's throat tightened. He had faced criminals, violence, and danger before, but never had he felt such raw heartbreak or such fierce relief. These weren't just rescues. They were survivors who deserved a future. When the paperwork was done and the shopkeeper charged, Daniels returned to the kennel one last time. The 3 pairs of eyes followed him, pleading silently. He smiled faintly and looked at Rex. "Guess our family just got bigger," he whispered. Rex wagged his tail, and the puppies yipped softly, as if they understood. Together, they had turned cruelty into hope.